Tennessee This Week from WATE's 6 on Your Side starts now.
I'm Marsha Blackburn. Here in the volunteer state, we always lead the way. And that's why I am announcing my candidacy for governor.
Senator Marsha Blackburn putting an end to speculation, announcing on Wednesday that she is running for governor of Tennessee. Hello and welcome to Tennessee This Week. I'm Lori Tucker. We're glad you're with us. One day after Senator Blackburn announced that she would run for governor, the Beacon Center released a poll showing Blackburn as the clear frontrunner on the Republican ticket. Let's take a look. These are the results of the poll. You can see Blackburn holds a double-digit lead right now over Congressman John Rose. 66% of those polled favor Blackburn. As you see there, 14% favor Rose. The poll also found that 19% of voters in this survey are undecided. Of note, Blackburn's current term as U.S. Senator runs through the beginning of 2031. If she were to win the governor's race, this would come with a real shakeup in Washington. Let's bring in our panel of pundits to talk about this. Joining us today, Courtney Piper, Craig Griffith, and Michael Covington. It's good to see you all.
Thank you.
First, let's talk about the timing of her announcement. We've heard speculation for months now. Why announce now?
Wow, what a surprise. This is probably
We're shocked.
This is probably the least kept secret
Right.
about politics in the state in the last 10 years. I assume that she announced now because it's her timeline. I'm sure that she and her advisors have worked through what they want to do in the next run up to the election, and this was the time. Then it's time to get out and start fundraising. That's one of the main things that drives campaigns now. And now's the time to fess up. I'm running. I'm going to get out there. I'm going to raise money. Now, obviously the poll shows she's the odds-on favorite, but we're at the start of the campaign. I think Representative Rose will run a capable campaign, but whether he's able to gain enough money to make up ground on her remains to be seen. So if I was betting, I think I would bet on Marsha now. But she needs to, talk about the issues she wants to run and talks on, and she wants to see where the vision she has for the state in the years to come. And we'll see if it can be a campaign, but I'm skeptical.
Okay, yeah. What about you, Courtney? I mean, she has the name recognition. She's been in Washington for a long time, well out ahead of Rose at this point. What do you think?
Again, worst kept secret in the history of the state of Tennessee. August is a good month. I mean, she had to announce at some point, and August is a good month because it's recess month for our federal delegation. So she had some free time to spend with her constituents in the state of Tennessee. So perfect time to get out here and be able to separate her time from her duties as a U.S. Senator and as a candidate. So the more interesting story here is what is going to happen to her Senate seat, given there is such a long term left. And, our mayor right now, County Mayor Glenn Jacobs, is her treasurer. There had to have been some sort of deal made. If he dropped out of the race, she would appoint him to the United States Senate. I just don't see a reason why our county mayor would just get out of the race for absolutely no reason.
Right. So here's the scenario you're talking about. If she gets a Washington appointment, if he gets one, Jacobs would be the freshman to campus. Then there's a scenario where someone like Congressman Burchett is appointed to Blackburn's Senate seat. That's where you're going to. Then Jacobs is appointed to Burchett's House seat. Is that realistic?
The reason why I don't think that's realistic is, again, I don't understand why Mayor Glenn Jacobs, who is a formidable political opponent, would get out of a statewide race to be a congressman.
Unless he has his sights set on something higher down the road.
I think, technically
like
speaking,
U.S. Senate?
Technically speaking, I don't think you can appoint to a House seat.
So there would have to be a special election.
There has to be a special election for that, so it's not a guarantee. So, and if you look at the timeline on this, it's my understanding that the next governor, or if she resigns her seat before she's inaugurated governor, assuming she wins, then the current governor, Bill Lee, could appoint a replacement. So we don't know how that would work out. But all odds were that she won't resign her seat until 2 minutes before she is sworn in and use that governor's power to appoint someone. So in next year is the race for county mayor, which is already underway. So he really wouldn't lose that much time in the mayor's office. So, and then it's my understanding from the law that he's appointed until it would be 2 years he would be in office, because the special election to replace her, the remainder of her term, would be in 2028. So
There you go, playing chess here on Tennessee
That's
this
the more
week.
interesting story with our governor's
Yes.
race, is the chess game that's emerging with our federal delegation.
And you know who does not have a poker face, speaking of another game, is Michael Covington. I know you're itching to say something.
Well, before we got too far upfield, I wanted to go back and put a little perspective on the timing of Senator Blackburn's announcement. Statutorily, just monetarily, and in particular, the way PACs are structured and the sources of money that Marsha Blackburn has, and I know my fellow pundits will double check me on this, but the timing of when she announced coincided with timelines of PAC monies. So she will be able to raise unlimited sums of money now, whereas this time last week, she was encumbered by PAC regulation. So she could have told you 3 months ago that this was going to be the time she was going to do this. She knew when she would be able to unleash her fundraising power. It has now been unleashed. And the Undertaker's little brother, Kane, is now handling the purse strings. So Kane, Glenn Jacobs being her treasurer is a very, very smart move. And Glenn Jacobs will be our next United States Senator. You need not talk about Tim Burchett in this discussion anymore.
The other interesting part here is I have heard a lot of my friends across the state say, well, I wouldn't vote for Marsha because I just voted for her for U.S. Senate, and that's where I wanted her to be. And some of them are a little upset that she was just elected to the U.S. Senate, and now she's choosing to run.
She had her sights set.
Right. However, Lori, that polling paints a completely different picture than what some of my friends are telling me on the ground. That polling does not show a path to victory for another GOP candidate at this point. So it's very decisive. And a lot of these polls, sometimes they just look at registered voters versus likely voters. But when you've got 66 to 14 with 19% undecided, it's hard to see a path to victory for any other candidate.
Looks like she's our next governor. Now, having said that, is there anyone who has yet
Lori,
to enter the race?
This is the primary.
I know, that's true. We don't want to jump ahead of ourselves. Is there anyone who has
let's
yet
make
to...
sure we don't do that.
Is there anyone who has yet to enter the race on the Republican ticket who could give her a real run for her money?
Oh, I don't think so. If you were going to have somebody like that, you would already know about them. They would have been out, as Michael says, raising money.
What about the Democrats?
Well, if Phil Bredesen couldn't win, I don't think there's a Democrat on the horizon that's capable of winning statewide office now.
There is a Democrat that has announced that she wants to run for governor. We'll see how the field expands from there, and we'll see if there is a path to victory.
Like I said, I don't see a Democrat on the horizon that's going to win statewide office in Tennessee.
There's no Democrat with a name at this point.
At this point.
And absent a name, you can't get elected.
Congressman John Rose is known.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's talk about
Yes.
why he doesn't show better right now in the Beacon.
Because he's only known in his district.
Yeah.
He's not known in East Tennessee at all. And I mean, I'm sure he's not well known in Hamilton County either. Probably not well known in Shelby County.
We were watching
Memphis, so.
Marsha Blackburn on Fox News nightly when she was a congresswoman. We knew then whatever her political aspirations were, they would be fed by the Republican Party, and they will be.
Right. And getting back to the, Glenn Jacobs probably will be appointed in the interim, but then he has to run eventually to keep that seat if he's interested in keeping it. And so that election will be interesting to see who runs in that. And in politics, that election's a lifetime away. But I would assume once he gets a taste of the Senate life that Glenn would want to run again for the full term, the remaining term of that till 2030, and then run again in 2030 for the next term.
With the help of the sitting governor, by the way.
Right.
Are you with us? All right. We're going to take a moment. This is fascinating to see how all these things can happen.
To us it is.
Yes, it really is. Thank you for being with us. We're not
Get
through
some coffee
yet.
out there.
Go get some coffee, and we will be right back to talk about more of the topics that are making news right now. Stay with us. Welcome back to Tennessee This Week. Indictments, or perhaps lack thereof. This week we learned Knox County Property Assessor Phil Ballard has been indicted for official misconduct. This for intentionally or knowingly receiving an unauthorized benefit. On the other hand, we learned that a grand jury chose not to indict Knox County trustee Justin Biggs. Biggs had been under investigation for the use of taxpayer funds for things like expensive hotel rooms and improper use of county vehicles. Our panel of pundits joins us once again to weigh in on these new local developments. First things first, are you surprised that Biggs wasn't indicted?
Yes. I was very surprised. I don't understand how both Ballard and Biggs did the exact same things. If we're just going to isolate this issue to they were receiving reimbursement for personal vehicle use and also were using a county vehicle. They both did the exact same thing. So clearly the grand jury saw something. They were presented with evidence. I am just baffled as to how they came out, how one elected official was indicted and the other was not.
So you think Biggs should have been indicted,
Well,
given what we know?
Given what we know.
What about you, Craig?
Yes. To the layperson out there, as Courtney says, it looks like that they did the same exact thing. They deceived the county taxpayers and profited off of that deception. And, I think that what Ballard did in terms of using a car and getting reimbursed for funds that were gas for his own private car is as bad as what Biggs did. And why Biggs wasn't indicted, I won't know. But I will say, and I'll ask this, I think this is a great question for your segment with Attorney Greg Isaacs. How can two people do the same exact thing and one be indicted and the other one seem to get away scot-free?
Duly noted.
Yeah, so we need a lawyer in the room to explain to us what that is. But again, it seems to be a problem in the city-county building in these constitutional offices that have very lax oversight. Once you get elected to that office, then you really have no oversight from anyone in the county government, not the budget office, not the county mayor, not county commission. You're really a little empire of your own. Then you can do a lot of things like Biggs did, signed off on travel that was way, way too expensive and cost the taxpayers too much. Do we need to change that system? And my opinion is yes. I think all these offices should be put under the purview of the county mayor so that there's direct accountability and transparency, and their budget answers to the county commission at least.
Well, speaking of the county mayor, Ballard's attorney has said that Ballard does not plan to stop working for the county. Should he, and if not, should Mayor Jacobs get involved here?
There's nothing that Mayor Jacobs can do for the reasons that Craig said. This is an elected office. Even with that criminal indictment, Phil Ballard can serve as the property assessor. There is nothing stopping him from doing that. So he can continue to serve until there is an election and people either choose to keep him in or vote him out. That is the only course of accountability that we have.
And I know, as a disclaimer here, Michael, you're being very quiet. I know. Explain to people what you do and why you don't feel you should comment right now.
Well, I obviously work in the assessor office. And like Kenny Rogers, I know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away, know when to run. This is a situation where no matter what you know, it's so convoluted and complicated that I just wish the best for all individuals involved, but I don't really know anything more to say than that.
All right.
There is a method that taxpayers could do. It's called an ouster suit, and but it's a very high bar that you have to reach to remove an elected official through an ouster. And as Courtney said, the county mayor has no direct supervision over this office, and he can't require anyone to leave office if he wants. And remember, we're all innocent until proven guilty, and nothing's been proven in this case. He's been indicted. Mm-hmm. Not good news. It's never good news when you've been indicted for a felony violation. But under the current laws, he can serve until he's, as Courtney said, either not elected to office or chooses to resign. And sometimes I think that maybe we're forgetting the fact that perhaps choosing to resign may be the best course of action.
All right, we'll see what happens. Let's move on, everyone. Switching gears, Knox County Commissioner and mayoral candidate Larson Jay proposing to phase out Knox County's $36 wheel tax. Jay says this proposal is supported by Knox County Mayor Glenn Jacobs. We've been talking a lot about Mayor Jacobs today. Let's talk about this. Is this good for the county, you all, and Jay's mayoral campaign, or does the county need this funding? He said, we're good without it. What do you think?
Well,
it's a lot of money.
It's what?
15, more than 15 million.
15 million. Yeah, and of course this was put on years ago by then County Mayor Mike Ragsdale, and he put it on for some very specific reasons. One was to build a new downtown library. One was to build rec centers around and libraries around the county. And, those things have been built. There is no new downtown library on the horizon. So perhaps he's correct in the sense that what this was instituted for is no longer viable. But on the other hand, it's going to put a hole in your budget. A lot of that money still goes to operating the library systems. But, it's the political season. You're going to come up with all sorts of strange proposals because the commissioner is running for county mayor to replace Glenn Jacobs. So,
And isn't that the message, bottom line? I want to be your mayor, I'm going to save you some money.
Yeah, well, I mean.
And it's always a hot button issue when you get your wheel registration and all that. This is how much I have to pay.
Right.
Even though it's $36.
Right. Well, there are plenty of other needs in the county. They have, talked about those construction projects under the Ragsdale administration. The county has a bubble in their budget coming up. It's going to be a very expensive one to try to remedy. So, is now the time to reduce your revenue?
It's an absurd proposal from a practical, logical, rational standpoint. It is a brilliant proposal from the political standpoint because he is running for county mayor, and he can put this in his candidate quiver. And whenever he's at a town hall or knocking on someone's door, he can say, "I've lowered your taxes already." But from the practical standpoint is the county is going off of a financial cliff. They have just been paying interest on some pretty hefty loans, and the principal is coming due under this next mayor. So any measures that would take away money from our budget seems rather fiscally irresponsible. The other point, too, is that this referendum was initially put on the ballot for people in 2024 to vote on, Knox Countyans to vote on.
2004.
2004.
Thank you, Craig.
It was put on the ballot in 2004, and it passed by 52%. So voters in Knox County approved this. However, it's interesting that in order to take it away, Knox County Commission with a 2/3 vote can take it away. It doesn't have to go back on the ballot.
That's interesting. Very interesting. What about you, Michael?
We're talking about this subject because Larson J. wants to be the next mayor. Absent Larson J. wanting to be the next mayor, we wouldn't be having this conversation. I don't know who's advising Mr. J. Whoever it was advised him poorly to get in the race this early. Almost no one has ever effectively done that. Now, every opportunity he has, he wants to be out in front of the camera saying, "I have a solution." But he doesn't really have solutions. He's campaigning to be mayor. He's working too hard to present himself as the junior mayor. He's not the junior mayor. He's a county commissioner. And he should campaign as Larson J. and not as the person who's going to deliver us into the future. He's not necessarily that person. He's working really too hard. It's much ado about nothing. Leave that tax alone. You know you want to raise taxes if you get elected anyway. Why not just be upfront with it?
All right, let's leave it at that. Let's move on. This show flies by with
It
you all.
does.
So let's keep going, get more issues handled. We're hearing from Richard Bean on how he's handling his retirement after decades as director of the Juvenile Detention Center that shares his name. On Wednesday, Bean told us how he's feeling given the state of his reputation after leaving. Listen.
The only thing I wish is somebody would come and talk to me and said that you need to get out of here. And I'm a sensible guy. I'm 85 years old, and got 63 years in this business. It's kind of a hard way to go out.
Your thoughts?
Well, yes, he's been in the job for a long time, but there had been numerous investigations into the operation of the Bean Center that revealed there were problems. And I think that was enough talking to whether he needed to start doing something about better management of the facility, better staffing, or it was time to retire. So, I understand from an elder, I'm getting to the point where I understand his position. And, but I think that time had come And if he had looked at the investigations into his discipline problems, in looking at the problems that were identified by the whistleblower that he tried to fire, that he would have seen that there were problems there. It needed the culture, the operations and management needed to change.
This whole, I didn't know, somebody should have told me, is not an excuse. It does not justify incompetence. The Department of Children's Services told you, Mr. Bean, that you had these problems year after year after year. Your board could have told you, they could have emphasized this report. You are the leader of this ship, you are the captain of this ship, and it is not in any way, shape, or form a justifiable excuse to say, well, I wish somebody would have told me, I didn't know.
Michael.
Lori, Mr. Bean aged out of the position, quite simply. I can only imagine what it's like to run a jail at 85 years of age. I can barely run myself at my age, and I'm a little younger. I think it's unfortunate that Mr. Bean stayed as long as he did. I think had he left 3 or 4 years ago, he would have been heralded as a great, great leader. But he stayed too long. Too many things added up. When one student took another student's when one juvenile took another juvenile's medication and was unconscious, that was the time. We were past the time then. A life was in the balance. We still really don't talk about the lives that were in the balance. Time passed him by. I hope he has a great retirement. I hope he doesn't take a chip on his shoulder into his grave. But the time is now. He needed to go. And if he didn't get notified by someone, and I'm trying to figure out who would have told Mr. Bean it's time to go. Had Glenn Jacobs walked into his office and said, it's time, do any of us really believe that a person that strong-willed would have left? So it's unfortunate, but I hope he has a good retirement.
All right, we'll leave it at that, and we'll be back right after this. Welcome back to Tennessee This Week. Glad you're with us. On Thursday, the Knox County Board of Education voted no on a resolution that would have urged the Tennessee General Assembly to ensure any future loss of federal funding is fully offset by state funding. Some board members argued that something like this would be more of a legislative priority. However, school board member Catherine Bike, who requested this resolution, disagrees. Let's bring our panel of pundits back in to talk about this. Who's right here, Bike or the school board members who said this should be handled as a legislative priority? Courtney?
It's a pretty significant issue, and Catherine Bike, I watched the school board meeting online, had a very pointed comment, and that is the debate always centers to be around, we don't want to tell the Tennessee General Assembly what to do. We don't want to tell state government what to do. And this was a critical situation for the county. Now, ultimately those funds got restored, but not before 27 people lost their current positions. And so to me, this seems like a very reasonable and timely request to make sure that the state can provide funding even if the federal government pulls back funding unexpectedly. That seems to be very normal. Now, what was incredibly interesting is that there was a vote across party lines. All the Republicans voted against this, all the Democrats voted for it. But the Republicans were saying this should be part of our legislative priorities. I would love to see that list of legislative priorities and see if, in fact, all those Republicans do support this being part of their legislative priorities. That will be very telling, and I don't know how some of them don't escape a challenger from the Democratic side that could seriously threaten their position if they do not include that in their legislative priorities.
Craig, what about you?
Well, I think it was an unreasonable request to say, okay, anytime in the future we want this money guaranteed by another organization, which was, and it was, it's up to those voters in that legislative body to approve it. So I don't think, a problem I have with it is that I think that organizations in this current environment need to get used to not having federal funding. That the spigot is potentially going to be turned off at a moment's notice, and you need, even at the college level, university level, local level, arts and culture organizations, you're going to have to learn to live without it, raise your own funds, do the best you can, because it's uncertain funding future. The priorities of the current administration are different from local priorities. They seem to be more interested in building ballrooms and coming up with billion-dollar airplanes and military parades, and not really caring about how this is impacting down at the grassroots level.
All right, we are out of time. Everyone, our pundits, thank you so much for being with us. And thank you for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. We'll see you right back here next week.
The views of guests on Tennessee This Week are their own and do not represent the views of WATE 6 on your side or Nexstar Broadcasting.